Welcome to Healing Not Heal, where we will talk about all things mental health and holistic wellness in a very transparent and culturally competent way. For today, I wanted to talk about something that I have struggled with personally throughout my life and intermittently in different various ways, and that's the scarcity mindset. And I think a lot of people struggle with having a scarcity mindset, and it kind of piggybacks on the last conversation that I had last week, as well as a little bit of on the week before on I'm not even going to go in on capitalism because I know I could take it there. But I was thinking more so about the behavioral effects that the scarcity mindset has had on myself personally, in which way maybe you can relate, and how that shows up in your world around you, right? And how that impacts, like I said, different areas of your life. For instance, money being one, right? Yeah, I think that's the most obvious that comes to mind when we talk about a scarcity mindset. But I'm also think about your living environment. You know, do we know people that hoard onto things? Who purchase things in bulk in fear of running out, or fear of not having enough. What about food, right? Some people have a very peculiar relationship with food, which I had to learn and grow out of myself with overeating. You know, not connecting to my brain when my stomach was full, or feeling bad for letting food go to waste, right? And so I think there, again, when I say I know that poverty has psychological impacts on how we show up in the world, how we behave, and how we adapt, I think about those behavior patterns in which then impact your health, your overall health, right? And so just, again, let's touch on a few of those things and how they may show up. And we can start with the scarcity mindset of money, for instance. And this isn't particular to race, but I will continue to bring up race on how, again, some of the oppression and obstacles that we have faced as Black and brown people differ in that, or are exaggerated by our race, and how scarcity has impacted us as well in regards to resources, education, things like that. So piggybacking off that conversation from last week where we talked about survivor's guilt and what that looked like, you know, possibly being the one that made it out of financial hardships, or were the first person to go to college, or the first doctor in your family, first lawyer, and how those things impact your family in such of, you know, some of the expectations you may place on yourself, or your family may place on you too, because of your level of success. And just thinking about the scarcity mindset as a person that may be that first generation, whatever it is that you also have fears and anxiety on what to do with that if you weren't educated on financial literacy and economics, right? Not everybody took economics, I don't know if it's required for everyone, but they don't go into details about the things that help you live as a functioning adult. And so, you know, a lot of those things you learn along the way. You know, if you're the first kid to go off to college, perhaps you learned from your peers, or you had mentors, or you had someone in your life who helps you elevate your understanding so that you could be smarter about how you spend, and you know. And so even with that in itself, just because your mindset has changed doesn't mean others has. And so you may have anxiety about what to do with your money management because you're worried about other people's money management, right? So you that goes back to the survivor's guilt of wanting to help in ways that you can, or are concerned about, now that you do have a different mindset, seeing the differences and the nuances on what you know versus what your family doesn't know, and trying to educate them, and you know, trying to help build up that generational wealth within your family. And so with that, there's still those internal fears and anxieties about, and again, this perspective can go in different ways, because some people do well with their money. Some people are, you know, because they've never had wealth, don't know how to save or spend their money, and maybe they're overspending. Again, that mindset can show up in a lot of ways. And the conversation of money within our communities are difficult because of that mindset. So how does that mindset show up in financial ways? Maybe it's staying at a job you don't really care for or have a passion for because you're not truly emotionally invested, but you're fearful of maybe not finding a better job or not finding a better paying job, or maybe you're worried about your housing situation, or to move out of state or to move to a new city, or, am I going to be able to afford it? Am I going to be able to make a living? There's probably just different passions and different ideas that seem radical or seem too far-fetched, just because the mindset you've experienced has taught you limitation, right? I join a lot of exit group on Facebook that talk about, their exit of leaving the United States, and that's no secret of mine. Eventually. And, a lot of the questions that come up a lot of the time is, how much did you save before you leave? How much do you need before you leave? And I have seen people say, I left with $150 and I'm doing just fine, right? You see people say, I saved for 6 months. Some people say I saved for years. Some people, I moved myself first and then I brought my family. And so the fear, the lack is really ingrained in the fear. Your doubt and your possibilities and the limitations that you have are the ones that you place on yourself. And I'm slowly starting to learn that. And that's why I said the scarcity mindset was a space that I had to grow into, because it was so many worries and fears because of the expectations of how you're supposed to show up and make a stable living, because you had the inconsistency before, that you're fearful of taking chances and doing things that you're passionate about or want to do or have an interest in because you've been told you can't, right? And we think about a lot of that about creative arts, people that wanted to be singers and dancers and artists and actors and actresses, and they feel like they can't because they've been told you're not going to make a sustainable living doing that, right? It's competitive, it's this, it's that. And so that limitation, it just becomes ingrained, and you walk through life on telling yourself what you can and cannot do. And usually it's a model of what other people have told you what you can and cannot do. Again, the implications of the scarcity mindset when it comes to food, I think about just, again, I've said this before, my personal experiences of going to food pantries and like fighting over food that, was seemingly halfway good, and just like noodles and hot dog was like, oh my God, like, you know what I mean? Not really having good nutritional value within the food, as well as, having to get handouts. But what that did over time is teach you to hoard food. And a lot of people might experience this as well, where they have this relationship with, if they don't finish their plate, you feel guilty, right? Or, you had a parent that told you couldn't leave the table until your food was gone, even though you were full, or even if you didn't really have an appetite, right? And so that teaches us gluttony, right? How does the scarcity mindset create gluttony in such a way that now you have weight gain and health issues and poor nutritional choices because of that mindset, and you don't know any better, right? And so it's retraining your brain that I don't have to finish my plate. I'm full, I'm good, and I'm not wasting, right? Whether I ate it, it was coming out one way or another. I can either flush it down the toilet or it can go in the trash, but either way, I'm done here, and I can be done and I can be guilt-free. That took me a long time to learn, because I would even look over at other people like, you're not going to finish that? And then you feel guilty and you start, again, that mindset. And so just even hoarding food, hoarding belongings, hoarding things, canned goods, toilet paper, paper towel. And I know COVID did a big one with fear of like, oh, we need to stock up on stuff. But how much of, look around your house, look in your closet, how many unnecessary shoes, how many unnecessary jackets, how many unnecessary, and I still struggle, raising my hand, I still struggle with hoarding things that you don't necessarily need. And that brings us back to us being a consumerist society built off capitalism. To fill an empty void, you keep purchasing things you don't need but want out of this desire to just have. And that mindset in itself on an emotional level just increases anxiety, it increases worry, nervousness, it creates scenarios that don't exist, and it creates doubt. You start to, again, question yourself and your own value and your own worth about attainment and needing to have more, needing to attain more, and limiting yourself, limiting your abilities. I shouldn't have this dream. I shouldn't have this passion. I shouldn't have this goal because it's not going to sustain me. And you have already taught yourself to diminish and control and minimize yourself completely off that mindset alone. I heard a scripture earlier today, Matthew 18, 1 through 5. But I'll just give the brief part where it says, "Truly, I tell you, unless you change and become little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." I heard that from Shaman Durek earlier, and I get it, right? What I take away from that is everybody is seeking the same things, right? We're looking for, peace of mind, comfort, stability. I would hope that, people aren't wishing ill will. We just want to live safe, free, and be able to live in comfort, right? And so when you think about that, you think about childlike innocence of just playfulness and just showing up in the world naive and just having faith in a higher power that everything's going to work out, right? Like, you are a kid playing around. You don't question where your next meal is. You just go in and say dinner time. And so when I hear that, it's just like, release worry, release the need to control, enjoy life in the ways that you can, and embrace those moments. Embrace, I think, this again, the scarcity mindset, the capitalism, put all it together, all the different ideologies that teach us to take us away from our childlike innocence, is all a distraction, and in some ways controlling us to continue to allow, capitalism to profit in the way that it is. It's designed to pull us away from our childlike innocence. We feel guilty for having fun in the ways that are childlike appropriately, right? Fun for adults is, go to the drink, go to the bar, go on vacation, do all the party, all this other stuff. But when you tell people like, what do you like to do for fun? I like to color. I like to sit and play with my sound healing instruments. I like to go for a walk, or I'm teaching myself how to skate, or I like to play games. Like, okay, yeah, that sounds fun, but people like, when we hitting the bar, when we doing this, when we doing that. And it's like, if you see a grown person dancing out in public, you're judging them, right? Like, if you see someone having a good time, we genuinely judge people for having a good time as an adult, as if that's not their birthright, right? And so a lot of that diminishes our self-esteem, our character, our desires, and it has helped keep people in this assembly line of working this 9 to 5, doing these 40 hours, continuing this stupid ass two-party system, following these rules. And I know I'm going off the deep end with this conversation, but that entire system has allowed us to think in such a way that if you think outside the box, if you do something different, you're abnormal. You're seen as different, or you're seen as extraordinary, when we all are, right? We all are extraordinary in our own ways. But the world has taught us like only some of us are, and only a few can be successful, when it's really outside of the systems that have been put in place to keep people oppressed. That is what's keeping us oppressed. It really is psychological. It really is mental. And that is why I'm always encouraging people. That is why I'm always speaking life into people. That is always, you can come to me with the craziest idea And I'm gonna support you 110%, because me limiting you is limiting myself, and I won't do that. I won't do that. I am limitless, and so are you. And so it's just a matter of finding your rhythm, finding your way, and finding what works for you, because there is greatness in all of us. And I don't care who says they're not. There's demons amongst us, yes, but there is greatness amongst us. And so you just have to use your discernment. But make life choices that really fulfill your heart, not your desires and lust, and like going off on I can just do whatever I want, because no, but like really, really, really touches your heart desires on and that fulfills you. And because I really think when people think about what their passion and what their interest is, it really in some way does inspire others. It does help encourage others. All of our experiences are different. And so you living in your truth in whatever way it is automatically inspiring someone else. It's automatically filling someone else up to feel empowered in themselves. And so just even a little bit, I wish people would be a little bit more authentic about how they show up and how they want to be in this world, and be honest and earnest about their passions and interests. And I was just telling my friend the other day, like, me and busy work don't get along, because I'm not going to do something just to be doing it. I like meaningful, impactful work. And so that looks different for everybody. Some people love numbers. Some people love structure. Some people love to be told what to do. Some people love consistency, right? But not everybody does, and not everybody has to live the same way. And so that's what I mean by leaning into your truth. And that doesn't mean like, if I could go quit my job, I'm not telling people to do that. I'm saying do what works for you, and ask yourself, am I limiting myself from a scarcity mindset? And am I telling myself or limiting myself because of beliefs that others have instilled in me? Do I really feel like this? Does my soul really agree with this? And if that anxiety and that anxiousness comes up for you in such a way where you feel pulled, like something just doesn't feel right, start asking yourself more questions. Start exploring that feeling a little bit more. Where is there room to wiggle in that? Right? That doesn't mean just throw caution to the wind. It's how can you feel your heart more? How can you feel your desires more, that you feel like you are more alignment as you are walking this earth, and you're not just here to exist. Okay. All right, Healing Fam. I hope this was a nice discussion. Again, make sure you like, share, subscribe. You can go ahead and follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the things at Healing Crown Counseling. I have my Sound Healing Sundays live on YouTube at 8 p.m. every Sunday, as well as Healing Not Healed dropping every Thursday morning. Again, thank you for being here, Healing Fam.